All right. Y'all like to play Twister? Sometimes God does. Kind of like that tornado he sent over to that house where all Job's whole family was gathered, and he blew that house down and everybody died. And that's so tragic and it seems terrible. However, God does what he does. Anywho, going back to our friend Joseph. So Joseph goes on continuing to interpret dreams and such. And he is such a wise man, interpreting the dreams of the Pharaoh, that Pharaoh says, this man is the wisest, surely, of all men. And he takes the ring off of his hand, Pharaoh does, and he gives his ring to Joseph, who is technically his slave. And he makes Joseph governor over all the land and puts him in some nice fancy clothes with a gold chain around his neck, right? So then there's a famine in all the land. But Joseph is a smart feller and has been storing up food for all these years. So Jacob, who is the father, sends 10 of his sons because Joseph is missing. We think he's dead. And he holds back the youngest, Benjamin, because Benjamin is the youngest and he can't die also. So to save him from trouble, he sends the 10, right? The fellers that plotted against Joseph to kill him, and then decided they should trap him, and then sold him into slavery, right? So they go to Egypt to get food, and they have money to buy this food. And so Joseph, who is in charge of all the food, remembers this prophetic dream that he had before he was sold into captivity because his brothers hated him. And he remembers this dream he had about the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowing down to him. And they chastised him for it. And they said, surely not. Like, are we going to bow down to you? Anyway, here come his brothers, hungry. They have nothing, and they need to eat. And Joseph has all the food because he's been made governor over all the food. Because he was smart, and he stored up that food for a rainy day. So Joseph recognizes his brothers, and he remembers this prophetic dream that he had when he was yet a child. Just a good-natured child with a pretty coat, right? So he doesn't reveal himself to his brothers, but he says, maybe you're spies. How do I know you're not spies? And they said, we're not spies. We're good people. Our dad is back home, and we're missing one brother, and the youngest one stayed back with dad because he loves him. He didn't want to lose him too. So Joseph says, listen here, I'm going to take one of your brothers and bind him up, and you're going to go and get the youngest brother to prove to me that you are who you say you are. So he fills them up with food and also returns their money to them in the bag, and then gives them provision for the way. So gives them plenty of food and doesn't make them pay for it, and gives them extra to provide for the journey. And who was it that realizes this? I don't know. Whichever one opened, it doesn't say which one. Whichever one opened his sack and realizes he has his money, and then Reuben's like, man, I told you before they even realized this that we should not have harmed our brother because his blood is on our hands. And then they see the sacks of the money and they're like, dang, we shouldn't have done that, right? So now they got to go back and tell their father that they have to also take Benjamin. So they get back and they have their money and they have the food. And Jacob's like, nah, I'm not sending Benjamin also out to the wolves. So they disobeyed what Joseph said, and they ate up all the food, and then they need more food. So Jacob's like, go and buy some more food. And they're like, we told you. He said, don't come back here without the youngest one. So this time, Jacob's like, if I lose another kid, I lose another kid. This is how it has to be. Like, that's my problem, right? So they send back Benjamin with the brothers and to get more food. So he loads them up with food again. Long story short, I'm skipping some steps. Anyway, and sends them on their way. But he has the fellers that fill up the sacks of food and give them money back. And he takes his own silver cup and he puts it in he has the men put it in Benjamin's sack. He didn't do it himself. He had the guys stash Joseph's cup in Benjamin's sack. So he sends them on their way. Then he tells his homies that to go chase after them and ask them why they would steal from him. And they're like, we didn't. But somebody did. So they put down their stuff and they dig through it. And they say that they all have to die, or whoever sack they find the cup in is to return to Joseph and to be his servant. So they all put down their sacks, and lo and behold, they find Joseph's cup in Benjamin's sack, even though it was planted there, right? Joseph did this. Joseph, who was governor of all the land, planted the cup in Benjamin's sack, right? Benjamin, who was the youngest, and when they came back and they dined with Joseph, he gave him 5 times the food that he gave the rest of the brothers because he was so happy to see him. It was his youngest brother, right? So, and he didn't get to see him the first time. So, anywho, this is what they say. So, they say, wherefore have ye rewarded evil for good, when Joseph loaded them up with grain and returned their money? And they said, when they find the cup, is not this it in which my Lord drinketh, and whereby indeed he divineth? Ye have done evil in so doing. So, even though Benjamin didn't ask for this cup, Benjamin, being the youngest, and he's only there because Joseph required it of him, he didn't steal it, but he's being accused of stealing it. So they all come back and they stand before Joseph, and Joseph says in chapter 44, verse 15 in the book of Genesis, where this story is, he says, and Joseph said unto them, what deed is this that you have done? Wot ye not that such a man as I can certainly divine? So, and it says, Judah said, one of the brothers, what shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? For how shall we clear ourselves? God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also, with whom the cup is found. And he said, God forbid that I should do so. But the man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant. And as for you, get you up in peace unto your father. So, again, these stories are multidimensional, right? So this is in fact a story of, somebody, Joseph, who for no good reason was sold into captivity after they planned to kill him. And then he's in prison and he's still doing the Lord's work because he knows who he works for. And because he continues to do the Lord's work, he's put in a high position. And He didn't ask for that position. It was given to him. But it was also a lot of work. So Joseph, who was governor of all these things, plants the cup in Benjamin's bag. And his purpose was to draw them back to him. Okay? So, and to teach them a lesson, kind of. So, that's one way to look at it. Number two is that they say, is it not this in which my Lord drinketh, and whereby indeed he divineth, ye have done evil in so doing? So, when God gives you a gift or puts you in a high position, we still have to understand that those gifts are from God, and whatever cup we drink of, it's granted to us from the Most High. And sometimes we go through, I don't want to say sometimes, it appears all the time, we go through periods of bondage and slavery that we did not deserve. But the reward is, even though, yes, we are still bound servants, we're bound to this earth, some of us, God provides a cup straight from him. And it's not for us to judge or to decide what cup God gives to any other person. It is also for us to discern where our wisdom is coming from, and to know that these things are granted to us of God. Now, I will explain in other videos, but the difference is in, sorcerers and practicing witchcraft. And the difference is that when you approach the spiritual world of your own accord, number one, you're not protected. And number two, you are taking for yourself what God has not given to you. And you're not supposed to understand that in a day, but I would encourage you to look into it, because the gifts that God gives is perfect. And he says, in, I think it's Deuteronomy, how do you determine if a message or a gift is come from God? And he says, a prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak. This is Deuteronomy 18, verse 20. I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. And it says, if he raises up a prophet, in verse 18, that he will put words in his mouth, and he will speak unto the people all that he shall command him. Verse 22 says, when a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord, if the thing follow not nor come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord hath not spoken. But the prophet hath spoken it presumptuously, thou shalt not be afraid of him. So, God is saying that his words are always true. So, I don't think that, yes, it should be assumed as long as you're holding your place in communion with God and doing what he said to do, then, that communication is protected. It's not a one and done thing. Do not assume that because you have communion with God so much of the time, that if you're falling short and you're doing things you shouldn't be doing, and do not assume that you cannot contract a demon or that you cannot be misled. That is not true. There is no perfect example except for Jesus in the Bible, if that's your reference. Even the prophets of God, even King David, who was the apple of his eye, no man is perfect aside from, the character of Jesus Christ. And that's why he gets to be the Savior. Because even if you belong to God, even if you are of God, yes, you have got to confirm with God, is this message from you? You've got to continuously check yourself and stay in that communion, because no man, even God's chosen people, are perfect. This is a dangerous realm to be in. And if God gives you a gift to have this communication, gives you extra understanding, then you take with gratitude what he gives to you, and do not try to get more than what he's given you, because it's dangerous. It's not good for you. God will give to you everything that's good for you. He promises that. Every good thing he will give to you. And I feel very strongly that I need to reiterate that God gives it according to his will. And sometimes we don't know why. Sometimes we don't know why we're thrown into prison without any good reason. We don't know why people hate us for no good reason. We don't know why people are envious. But the same is true. If God gives you a gift, he will confirm that it's from him. And the same is true if God gives another person a gift. Before you take that person's advice, absolutely, you should go to God first and confirm, God, is this from you? Is this communication from you? Or is this from not from you? Understanding that even a vessel that God chooses it's not a fail-proof vessel. Nothing is airtight. None of us can be exactly perfect. So yes, question everything. Go to God, take it to God, and ask God to confirm it for you. But going around judging and belittling and tarnishing the name of a person who you don't know personally, without taking it to God first, is going to come back on you. And going into the spiritual realm and taking things that are not given to you is not okay. Don't do it. That's a good way to contract demons and other things, and trust. Like, the spiritual realm is a thing. If you want to talk to me that, personally, I'm happy to talk to you about that and to tell you from firsthand experience, even though I, went into it in ignorance, they're like, don't do it. It's not worth it. It can cause you a lot of trouble. So anyway, that's all. God does what he will, and he gives gifts to the people who he will. And it's not for us to judge or condemn any other person. It's for us to discern the information that we get and to take what God gives us with gratitude. And if we have issue with it, take those issues to God. Anyway, I love you. Please like, share, and subscribe. I know that was longer than I meant it to be, but I think it was important. Have a lovely day.